Hello everyone. On May 28th, 2009, while Feng Hong was having dinner with his girlfriend at a restaurant, he received a call from his mother. The conversation was not particularly significant, just a simple inquiry about his life. However, the conversation was suddenly interrupted. He tried calling back, but no one answered. Assuming that his mother was busy and considering that he was having dinner with his girlfriend, he thought it would be inconvenient to have a long phone conversation. Therefore, after returning home, he called his mother again, but there was no signal. He thought maybe his mother had turned off her phone and gone to sleep because his parents had divorced, and he was living with his father while his mother lived alone in another province. So he didn't know who to ask about the situation and became very worried. After 3 days of being unable to contact his mother, Feng Hong decided to call the Hongta District Police in the city of Yuxi, where his mother lived, to report the incident. The police began investigating this woman and discovered that her name was Jo Min, 39 years old but still young and beautiful. Her ex-husband Pham Tai, 50 years old, revealed that when their son tried to contact Jo Min without success, he called her workplace to inquire about her situation. However, a colleague informed him that Jo Min had not been to work for several days and had not requested any leave, even though she was a very diligent and responsible person. Friends and relatives searched everywhere but found no results, so they had to report to the police. The police focused on the close relationships of the victim and checked their bank accounts because in serious missing person cases or cases that give the feeling someone has died, there are usually two reasons: love and money. A close colleague of Jo Min revealed that just one day before she went missing, Min had complained to her about her boyfriend whom she had been dating for the past 2 years. His name was Song Nian, 32 years old, 7 years younger than Jo Min, but very tall and handsome. When checking Jo Min's call history, they discovered that the two had made 2 phone calls to each other at 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. on the day she went missing, with the last call being to her son Feng Hong. In general, Jo Min's life was healthy and there were no complicated relationships. Her close friend reported to the police that the man she was in a romantic relationship with, who came from Sichuan to Yunnan for business, was the person Song Nian. However, he was someone who ate a lot but worked little and frequently borrowed money from Jo Min without ever paying it back. Each time he borrowed a few thousand renminbi, but after several times the accumulated amount reached tens of thousands of renminbi. Jo Min had confided to her friend that she wanted to end this relationship, but she was being threatened by him. Over a year ago, Jo Min had used her savings to buy a villa of over 400 square meters in the suburbs. Now she wanted to sell it because the real estate price had risen and she estimated that she would make a large sum of money. However, because Song Nian knew about her plan to sell the villa, he tried to borrow 500,000 yuan to go into business with a large investor. Because Nian had known Min for over 2 years, Min knew that there were no large investors here, only European bookmakers, meaning online gambling. Of course, Min never wanted her hard-earned money to fall into Nian's hands, the person she wanted to leave. That's why she avoided him and ignored his calls several times. The police summoned Song Nian to the station for questioning. He admitted to having a romantic relationship with Jo Min and owing her some money. However, he claimed that on the day Min went missing, he called her twice to meet and reconcile, but she refused, citing work as a reason. When the police mentioned his previous threats to Min when she wanted to end the relationship, Song Nian said that he had strong feelings for her and didn't want to break up. He claimed that his threats were only meant to keep her with him and not to harm her. The police investigated Song Nian's activities from the evening of May 28th to May 29th and discovered that he was being pursued by loan sharks. He called Jo Min multiple times to reconcile and borrow money, but was always turned down. Unable to find a way to repay his debts from May 28th to May 30th, he accepted an offer to go on a tour with an older, wealthy woman to earn money to pay off his debts. The police invited this woman to cooperate in the investigation, and she confirmed Song Nian's alibi. Checking the cameras at tourist spots, the police found that Song Nian appeared in the footage, ruling him out as a suspect. Upon receiving the news of Jo Min's disappearance, the police notified the banks where she had accounts to check recent transactions, especially after the evening of May 28th. However, no transactions were recorded since her disappearance. The police checked the cameras near Jo Min's residence, but due to the limited number of street cameras in 2009, there weren't as many as there are now. Her private house was located in the city, while the villa she invested in was in the outskirts of Yuxi City. The villa was newly built and was still unfinished and unpainted. The police decided to check the cameras in both the residential area and near Jo Min's villa. Finally, they discovered a silver Toyota car with Jo Min's registered license plate appearing in the surveillance video at 10:30 a.m. on May 29th. The Toyota car was heading towards the city center of Yuxi. Upon zooming in and closely examining the footage, the police noticed that the driver was not Jo Min, but a man. The front passenger seat was empty and the image on the surveillance camera was not clear enough to identify the features of this unfamiliar man or determine if Zhou Min was in the car. Many questions arose, such as who was the man driving the car? What was his relationship with Zhou Min, and was he involved in her disappearance? However, due to the blurry image of Zhou Min's car moving towards the city center and disappearing after a few turns, this lead gradually hit a dead end. The police decided to focus on investigating Zhou Min's financial situation. The banks where she had accounts reported to the police about 2 consecutive cash withdrawals from her card in Kunming on May 30th. The police, along with bank technicians, immediately checked the surveillance videos from the ATM and found that the person withdrawing the money was not Zhou Min, but an unfamiliar man. The first withdrawal occurred at 5:59 p.m. when it was raining in Kunming, and there were many people bustling around with umbrellas. The security camera captured an image of a tall man holding a dark yellow umbrella appearing on the right corner of the screen. He appeared to be around 25 years old, wearing a black t-shirt and trousers. When he reached the ATM, he folded the umbrella and placed it at his feet. The man was wearing a dark plastic sun visor hat with a wide brim, which was quite common in China. Wearing the sun visor hat was clearly an attempt to conceal his identity from the ATM camera. However, the camera angle was not from above, but rather from below, so his hat didn't provide much coverage, and his face was still quite clearly captured. In the surveillance footage, the man appeared anxious and nervous, constantly glancing around while withdrawing the money. After obtaining the cash, he put it into a light blue plastic bag and quickly left. The police immediately printed these images and sent them to Zhou Min's friends and family members for identification, but no one recognized the man in the pictures. The second withdrawal occurred approximately 8 hours after the first one at 2:23 a.m. on June 2nd. This time, the man appeared less cautious and anxious compared to the previous withdrawal. He walked straight to the ATM without wearing a hat or a face mask, dressed in a red shirt and black jeans. He calmly withdrew the money while casually smoking a cigarette. Comparing the images from the ATM camera in both instances confirmed that this man was the same person who made the previous withdrawal. It had been over a day since Zhou Min's family reported her disappearance, and her son hurriedly took a flight to Yuxi, Yunnan, to assist in the investigation and accompanied the police to check Zhou Min's private house and villa. There were no signs of disturbance at her private house, with all belongings intact, and no signs of theft or forced entry. The police then unlocked the gate to the villa and proceeded with the investigation. The villa was newly completed, but still in its unfinished state. During the investigation on the ground floor of the villa, on the concrete floor, there were numerous shoe prints mixed with mud, indicating that someone had been there on a rainy day. Besides the women's shoe prints with pointed heels matching Zhou Min's shoe size, there were also other male shoe prints. However, these male shoe prints were not from the same pair of shoes, but from 2 different styles and sizes, all of which were still very new and distinct. The police followed the shoe prints on the staircase and checked the second floor of the villa, where they unexpectedly found the lifeless body of Zhou Min lying in the corner of the bathroom. The body was pale and showed signs of decomposition, with patches of green-brown and purplish-brown discoloration on the skin. These marks were particularly dark in the pelvic bone area, abdomen, chest, face, and spotted on the extremities with bruised blood flowing under the skin around the neck. Based on these findings, the forensic examiner determined that the victim had been dead for nearly 4 days and the cause of death was strangulation. After discovering the body of the missing person, Zhou Min, the case turned into a homicide investigation. At this point, the bank continued to report that Zhou Min's ATM card had been used to withdraw money 31 times at various locations, such as Kunming and Sichuan, totaling over 63,000 yuan. The police divided into multiple teams and arranged surveillance near these ATM machines and the surrounding areas of the withdrawal points, but the unidentified man did not return. They made an observation that he never withdrew money from the same ATM twice. The investigators carefully examined the phone numbers that had contacted Zhou Min on the day she went missing. After ruling out the phone number of her boyfriend, who had evidence of being unrelated to the crime, and her son, the remaining phone numbers that called were all inquiries about house viewings. The police thoroughly reviewed each phone number and requested the telecommunications company to provide the call, history, and messages of all the numbers in contact with the victim around the time she was killed. Quickly, a phone number with the prefix 151 caught the attention of the police. The owner of this subscription number had called all the other phone numbers advertising sales in the same newspaper, including Zhou Min. In other words, on a page where people posted advertisements for selling houses, villas, transferring workshops and selling motorcycles, bicycles, and cars. His phone number with the prefix 151 had called and made appointments to visit for transactions. This was illogical because at the same time a person could not have so many shopping needs to buy everything in the world. The police proceeded to meet each person who had placed an advertisement in the newspaper on that day. A man named Mr. Liu, who was selling a car, stated that on the afternoon of May 28th, a man called him expressing interest in buying his used car. They agreed to meet near a supermarket, but that evening, the buyer canceled the appointment claiming an unexpected urgent matter that prevented him from arranging the time. At 4 p.m. on the same day, Miss Yang, who had advertised a house for sale, also received a call from the same man arranging to meet to see the house. When she and her husband arrived at the designated location, they waited for the buyer, but he never showed up. When they called the buyer back, he said that the price of the house was too high, so he had decided not to view it. The police questioned all the individuals who had placed advertisements for selling houses, workshops, bicycles, and motorcycles in the same newspaper and received similar information about appointments being made and canceled. The witnesses all described the man who made the phone calls as having a clear and somewhat Beijing accent. After further investigation, the police discovered that the number 151 had also called the emergency hotline 114 on the same day. They quickly contacted the hotline to search for information and were provided with a recording of the call made from this subscription number. In the recording, they heard the voice of the suspect in a conversation with a female operator as he was asking for the address of Zhou Min's villa. Thus, it was highly likely that this person was not a local resident as he did not know the location of Zhou Min's villa in the suburbs. He may have made the phone call to inquire and ask for directions because he was unfamiliar with the area where the villa was located. After listening to the recording repeatedly and carefully studying it, they discovered that although the person spoke in a Beijing accent during the call, he used certain words characteristic of the local dialect in Yunnan province. Based on the analysis, they believed that the caller could very well be someone from the Dali area in Yunnan province. Despite his intention to conceal his local accent, his word choices inadvertently revealed this fact. Basically, the temporary police determined in the evening of May 28th that the suspect had made a phone call and arranged to meet Zhou Min while also calling the hotline 114 to look up the address of the villa. The man murdered her that evening, and on the morning of May 29th, around 10 a.m., he drove Zhou Min's Toyota car, appearing on the road leading to the city center of Yushi. In the following days, the suspect withdrew money from Zhou Min's account at both locations Kunming and Sichuan. Gradually, the picture of the case became clearer, and the police identified the direction of the investigation. The suspect took advantage of buying a house to approach Zhou Min and rob her property, demonstrating a high possibility of him committing further crimes. After the successful first crime, it was highly likely that he would approach and kill people with the intention of robbing their assets, similar to the case of Zhou Min. The police's urgent task now was to arrest the suspect to ensure the safety of society. After analyzing the situation, the police speculated that the person, using the SIM card with the number prefix 151, was highly likely to have returned and gone into hiding in Dali. In the evening of June 5th, 2009, the Hongta police quickly arrived at Dali and coordinated with the local police to conduct a large-scale search. Along with that, they collected all the train ticket data from Dali to Yushi in recent times for review. Because it was mandatory to use an identification card when purchasing train tickets, the investigators narrowed down the search to males aged 20 to 30. Then a person named Song Quen came into the police's focus because the photo in Song Quen's archive profile completely matched the person who withdrew money from Zhou Min's account. Song Quen is 28 years old this year and lives in Gudong District, Heilongjiang Province. Although he is not from Dali, Yunnan Province, as initially speculated, he had come to Dali 5 years ago to run a tea shop. During the time of the crime, he had just left Dali and traveled to Yushi by train on May 26th. The police informed all hotels, guest houses, and budget accommodations in the Dali area and surrounding districts about the suspect's information. Around 9 p.m. on June 6th, a receptionist at a guest house in the Dali area called the police to report a case where a guest registered with the name Song Quen. The physical characteristics and information matched exactly with the person the investigators were looking for. Immediately, the police planned to apprehend the suspect. At 1 a.m. on June 6th, a female receptionist led the police to the room rented by Song Quen and knocked on the door. When the door opened, the police immediately rushed in and subdued him on the spot. The police interrogated Song Quen that same night, and he quickly confessed and revealed another accomplice also in Dali. This accomplice's name was Liang Fei Huen, 37 years old, from Hanshan, Heilongjiang province. The police quickly found traces of Liang Fei Huen and arrested him at an internet cafe. Based on the ATM withdrawal videos obtained by the police, along with 3 bank cards belonging to the victim found during the search of the suspect's room at the guest house, these 2 individuals confessed to the crime and recounted the process of the murder. On a night in mid-May 2009, when Quen was having dinner at a restaurant in the area, he happened to meet Huen. Both of them had a similar regional accent, a blend of Dali and Heilongjiang, so they recognized each other as fellow countrymen and greeted each other. Song Quen and Liang Fei Huen moved to sit at the same table and had a few drinks together. Because they coincidentally met fellow countrymen in a foreign place, they quickly became friendly and cheerful. At this moment, Liang Fei Huen appeared very serious and asked Song Quen if he wanted to earn a lot of money. Song Quen seemed skeptical, but immediately replied that everyone wants to earn a lot of money. Huen leaned close to Quen and told him that he had stolen from many places before picking pockets on buses and trains, and had been sentenced to 3 years in prison for theft. While in prison, he learned how to steal without being detected and how to cover his tracks. He was confident that he could commit the crime without being caught, but what he lacked was an accomplice to support him in carrying out this plan. Immediately, Quen nodded in agreement. At the end of May, Quen and Huen arranged to meet at the train station to prepare for their robbery. At this point, they had a robbery plan, but they didn't know where they would commit the crime. After examining the train ticket prices, they found that the cheapest fare was to the city of Yuxi, so they decided to choose Yuxi as the location for their criminal act. Upon arriving in Yuxi on the afternoon of May 27th, they bought a newspaper to search for targets. Song Quen and Liang Fei Huen believed that people selling assets like houses, cars, and motorcycles must have money, and they would have easy reasons to approach them privately. They believed that they could make money by robbing these people, so they called each person, and their chosen target was Zhou Min. They explained that before choosing Zhou Min, they had made a phone call to arrange a meeting with a man selling a car with the intention of robbing him. They planned to pretend to request a test drive and take the man to a secluded spot to rob him. However, when they arrived at the meeting point, they saw that he was accompanied by several other people, making it difficult for them to act, so they replied that they were busy and didn't have time to meet. Next, they arranged a meeting with a woman to view a house. This time, learning from their unsuccessful previous attempt, they immediately asked her if she was accompanied by anyone. The woman replied that she was accompanied by her husband, so these 2 individuals didn't go to the meeting point and continued to search for another target. They made a phone call and arranged to meet Zhou Min to buy a villa around 6 p.m. that evening. At this time, it was raining heavily and getting dark, so Zhou Min replied that it was raining too much and it was late, inviting them to come and view the house the next day. Liang Fei Huen told Zhou Min that when viewing a house, buyers tend to choose bad weather conditions, rain and wind, to see if the house leaks or gets flooded during heavy rain. If they came in good weather, they wouldn't notice any inconveniences with the house. It sounded reasonable, so Zhou Min didn't suspect anything and drove to the suburban villa as planned. Knowing that Zhou Min was alone when she arrived at the meeting point, Quen and Huen carefully observed the surroundings of the villa. They noticed that this suburban area mostly consisted of partially constructed villas with few people around and was relatively empty. When it got dark, they determined that this would be the best target and timing to commit the crime. Once inside the villa, they pretended to inquire about the price and went upstairs to inspect. Zhou Min went upstairs with them to continue the discussion, but little did she know that they would restrain and search her, taking 3,000 yuan and 3 bank cards. They threatened Zhou Min to reveal the passwords of the cards. After obtaining the passwords, Huen urged Quen to strangle Zhou Min to death. After killing the victim, the 2 of them cleaned up the crime scene to erase fingerprints, following the instructions given by social gang leaders to Liang Fei Huen when he was in prison. They stayed on the first floor of the villa and didn't leave until the next morning around 10 a.m., taking the victim's car. They then abandoned the car in a deserted area and traveled to places like Kunming, Sichuan, spending a portion of the stolen money. Afterward, they decided to return to Dali to hide because they believed that imitating the Beijing accent when contacting the victim and calling the emergency hotline 114 would surely mislead the police. However, they did not know that their use of some local words in Dali had led the police to follow the clues and cordon off the area. When arrested and interrogated, Song Quen cried a lot, made sincere confessions, and showed remorse. He continuously sobbed, apologizing to the victim's relatives and talking about his family in Heilongjiang who were waiting for his return. However, this belated remorse could not help Quen reduce his sentence. In the end, both Song Quen and Liang Fei Huen were convicted and sentenced to death in October 2009 for the charges of murder and robbery. The most impressive aspect of this case is the story of a cunning and manipulative individual combined with a somewhat intellectually impaired person committing robbery and murder. The way the cunning individual manipulated the psyche and actions of the intellectually impaired person was truly evil. Everything they said, the intellectually impaired person believed without question, but they also put on an impressive retaliation. The innocent act of showing their face on the ATM camera left behind all the loopholes and quickly led both perpetrators to justice. The most heartbreaking aspect of this case is the tragic death of Jo Min. She had almost no one to rely on and lived alone. The fortunate victims of these two murderers narrowly escaped because they had someone accompanying them when they arrived at the meeting point. Jo Min, lonely and vulnerable as she was, did not take any precautions when leading two men to view a house in a deserted suburban area late at night. This cost her dearly, even her life. How do you feel about today's case? Leave a comment so we can discuss. And if you liked it, don't hesitate to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to support us. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.